students, today we'll be discussing the principles of government in the Manusmriti. The objective behind today's discussion is to give you an insight into the principles of governance in the Manusmriti, the principles of administration and interstate relations. For the convenience of understanding, the entire segment has been divided into a number of parts. We would first start by introducing the text. Then we would move on to principles of government in the Manusmriti. The basic principles that we would be discussing is decentralization of power, taxation, wages, public opinion, public security, interstate relations and the jury system. Manusmriti or Manav Dharma Shastra is one of the outstanding treatises on Hindu political thought. It encompasses principles of statecraft, governance, legal system, social organization, interstate relations. The entire text is divided into 12 chapters, which comprise of 2,685 verses. It is considered to be a compendium on the science of government and administration. It also consists of social obligations and duties of the various castes and the individuals in different phases of their life. It also lays down the guidelines that a king should follow while governing his kingdom. Manu is considered to be the progenitor of the human race, the first lawgiver, and also the founder of the social and moral order. In fact, it is believed that Manusmriti contains an entire manual on rules of governing and administration. The seventh chapter of the Manusmriti considers Raj Dharma to be the basis of statecraft. In fact, this chapter contains the various principles for governing a state. This chapter also emphasizes on various aspects of government functioning. Manusmriti focuses on the 7 organs of the state. And these 7 organs, which comprise of the king, ministers, territory, population, fortresses, treasury, army, and a system of alliances, are all related to each other and share a complementary relationship. In fact, Manu believes in the organic relationship between the different organs of the state. The principal objective behind Manu's ideas on governance and administration was to create harmony in society and polity. Manu emphasizes the state encompasses 3 constituent elements: the physical, political, and the spiritual. The physical element comprises of the population and territory, what he calls the Janapad. The political comprises of the 3 departments of the government: executive, legislature, and the judiciary. The spiritual element of the state comprises of freedom from external control and the ability to pursue an independent line of action. The independence and freedom necessary to live an ideal social, moral, and political life. This was the state to Manu. Now, one of the cardinal principles of administration contained in the Manusmriti is decentralization of power. Now, students, today decentralization of power is very popular. India also follows decentralization from the central, state and local governments. In fact, Manu also emphasizes on village as the basic unit of administration. He focuses on the fact that many villages would form a district and then provinces and finally would encompass the state. There was an arrangement where in every village there would be a head who would call the Gramika. who would be responsible for the governance of the village and administration of the various affairs of the village. It is interesting to observe that the basic governing unit of this organization was the fact that smaller units were easier to govern, and this would facilitate better governance or good governance, which is again quite popular in today's era. In fact, it was believed that the smallest units would be able to better solve problems, and the king would not be overburdened with problems of the entire state, and decentralization aids in better governance according to Manusmriti. Village administration. As I said, the basic unit of administration was the village. The village was the pivot of administration. The village comprised of the people living there, and the entire village administration was supervised by the Gramani or Gramika, as he was called. In fact, he was also responsible for collection of revenue, responsible for maintenance of accords and general administration. He was also responsible for the defense of the village, and he was the custodian of all records. He had to submit all the records to the king when he was asked to do so. He was responsible also for corresponding with the district officials and provincial officials. In fact, it was believed and considered that 1,000 villages comprises of a district called the Vishaya. Many districts formed a province, and many provinces formed the state. The next important aspect of governance was taxation. Manu emphatically observed that the system of taxation should be such that it would enhance a nation's wealth. Prosperity of a kingdom was dependent on the ability of the state to collect revenue and taxes. He empowered the king the right to collect taxes for providing protection to the people. Manu, however, advised that the king should collect taxes and levy taxes, keeping in mind the capacity and capability of the people to pay them. The king was entitled to 1/50th of gold, 1/6th of crop, and 1/12th of commerce. He also stated that if the subjects were overburdened with tax payments, it would lead to great discontent and frustration among the population, which would ultimately result in national disaster, with the people revolting against the state. Manu also advised the king that the entire amount that was collected by way of taxation should be used for the welfare of the people. Finance was important even in ancient times, and Manu recognized the fact that no government could work without an adequate treasury. Now, what were the types of taxes? Manu provided for various categories of taxes: land revenue, fees, fines, taxes on the use of rivers, taxes on animals, taxes on artisans and various other professions, sales tax. Manu says, a king who affords no protection yet receives the 6th part of the produce as taxes brings upon himself the foulness of the whole people. So taxes should be just, and it should not overburden the people. The next principle of administration was fixation of wages. Manu opined that wages should be fixed in accordance with the merit of the earner. He was of the opinion that heredity alone should not be a criteria for occupation. Rather, merit, capacity should also be taken into consideration. However, he also opines that heredity should not be denounced altogether, because certain traits of character are passed on from one generation to another, and the principle of heredity should not be discarded altogether. Thus, according to Manu, positions should be based both on heredity as well as merit. next to public opinion. Manu gave utmost importance to public opinion, and the king should pay heed to what people are thinking and saying. Manu emphasized the need for a strong and transparent public opinion to understand people's needs and aspirations, as well as to quell the rise of a rebellion. In order to facilitate a transparent public opinion, Manu contemplates an assembly of learned men as well as officers of the state. They are expected to decide issues on the basis of dharma. The members of the assembly are expected to speak and deliberate fearlessly. When people refuse to speak their minds, Manu agrees that truth is destroyed and the whole assembly along with the king perishes. He also believes that the king should pay heed to public opinion. In the interest of the welfare of the people and the state, the people also should offer correct opinion. They should not be afraid of the king while providing an opinion about laws and policies. The king and his assembly are expected not to violate dharma under any circumstances while paying heed to public opinion. Manu clearly states that the king is subject to law which is framed by the learned, not by the king himself. And anyone who defies the law should justifiably be punished. In fact, the people are justified when the king deviates from dharma or disregards the joint advice of the learned people, and they are even justified in killing the king. Obedience to the king is necessary, definitely, but it is conditional on the king's performance of his administrative responsibilities. The next important aspect of administration was public security. Under the policy of public security, Manu provided that the king was required to detect two classes of thieves with the help of spies. The first class of thieves are called open thieves. They were those who accepted bribes and lived by fraudulent means. This class included the gamblers, fortune tellers, people who cheated others, officials, physicians, guilty or improper conduct. The second category of thieves comprised of secret thieves. They included burglars, robbers, dacoits. Manu mentions that different kinds of punishment should be provided to open and secret thieves. Different methods and techniques should be employed by the king for the determination and punishment of these two classes of culprits. The king was to decide about the offense or crime committed by them and mete out punishment according to the degree of offense. Different punishments were prescribed for different kinds of crimes committed by these open and secret thieves. This also included dishonest behavior and ill treatment meted out by different classes of people or officials. Another important aspect of public security was officials and corruption. Manu was of the opinion that royal officers and vassals who do not discharge their duties honestly and sincerely and remain indifferent at the time of a commission of the crime should also be punished. Members of the public who do not resist when a village was being plundered, when a dike damaged, or a highway robbery committed in front of their eyes should also be punished for their inaction. Confiscation of the property of the rich, indulging in crime of dishonesty, imposing a heavy fine on ministers and judges were also permissible as a part of administrative policy. The king had the right to punish recalcitrant elements of the state because this was necessary in the interest of just and efficient administration. The next important aspect of administration was interstate relations. The aim of pursuing interstate relations was to establish political expediency and righteousness in the world. Manu was in favor of war under two conditions: when there was a threat to one's own kingdom, and secondly, for the expansion of territory. The primary duty of the king was to protect the kingdom and the people from external aggression and attack. For this purpose, Manu suggested 4 techniques may be used, he called Chaturapaya. They are conciliation, dissension, bribery and force. Manu, however, adds that force should be used in the last resort. What were the types of foreign policy? Manu provides for 6 types of foreign policy: peace, war, marching, alliance, double policy and neutrality. All these different kinds of foreign policy may be pursued by the king at different points of time in accordance with his position in relation to his own kingdom as well as in relation to other kingdoms. He prescribed that the king should wage war only when he knew that he was strong enough to defeat the enemy and that his own enemy was well disposed towards him. The Dharma Shastra advocated Dharma Yudh. Manu also focused on Dharma Yudh or Dharma as the basis of warfare. Coming to the next important aspect of interstate relations is war and peace. Manu favored a king agreeing to make peace when he was sure of superiority in future but weakness at present. He prescribed that the king shall wage war only when he knew that he was strong enough to defeat the enemy, and he also knew that the war would bring gains to his kingdom. The king, said Manu, should not engage in war when he is weak in chariots and troops. He shall divide his forces when his enemy is stronger, and take refuge with a rich and powerful enemy, and he should take the opportune moment to strike against his enemy at the right point of time. Finally, while determining foreign policy, the king should take into consideration the future as well as the immediate present, the consequences of pursuing a particular policy, the positive and negative actions, at the same time how a particular policy can affect the present as well as the future. Now, Manu also provided for detailed strategies to be pursued by a king when he is facing an attack. The king should march during a season which is favorable for his army and should provide necessary weapons to the troops for the occasion. Under exceptional circumstances, the king may march if he is sure of his victory and if he is very sure that his enemy is in a negative state. His enemy should not know his weaknesses, but he should know the weaknesses of his enemy. That would give him the leverage to take the right decision at the right point of time. After war, the next important phase is treaty making. Signing of treaties. There are 3 objectives behind treaties. The first objective is acquisition of an ally or mitra. The second objective is acquisition of money. The third objective is acquisition of land, territory or bhumi. Now Manu says that you have to understand which is the right treaty that should be signed. A king prospers not so much by the acquisition of money and land as by acquiring a royal ally who may be weak at present but may turn into a powerful one in future. By gaining gold and land, a king grows not so much in strength as by obtaining a friend who, though weak at present, may become very, very powerful in the future. A weak friend is greatly commended, but the ally should be righteous, grateful, and when people are contented, he should ensure that he offers the right kind of support to the king. The king is also advised by Manu to abandon rich land and money when he is in conflict with his personal safety and security. So, utmost importance is personal safety and security of the king. Let's come to the jury system, a very important part of judicial administration. The jury would comprise of 3 to 5 members who would be well versed in law and the Vedas. The Chief Justice would be empowered to decide cases with the assistance of learned Brahmins and in accordance with the legal principles. The Adhyakshas would decide cases with the assistance of 3 members of the Judicial Assembly. Under no circumstances there should be dispensation of justice by a single member. Manu emphasized the need for a very powerful jury system. The King's Court would have 2 kinds of jurisdiction, original and appellate. And students, this is available in India at this point of time also. As an original court, it tried all cases which arose within the boundaries of the capital. On the appellate side, it was the highest court of appeal in all cases that were put on trial in the first instance in the inferior courts. The King's Court also exercised a great deal of general supervision over administration of justice. The king was under an obligation to ensure that justice was dispensed with equity and fairness. Next in importance was the principal courts, which would be held in different centers and different provinces, and the courts which would be held in towns as well as in the villages as sub-districts. The next important part of administration, according to Manu, was appointment of judges. Manu was in favor of appointment of Brahmins as the chief judge. In exceptional circumstances, a Kshatriya or a Vaishya can be appointed as a judge, but under no circumstances a Shudra may be appointed as a judge. Perhaps it was because of the fact that the Shudras were denied the study of Vedas and were not associated or familiarized with legal principles. How were judicial decisions taken as a part of administration? 3 assessors were to be appointed as associates of the chief judge. Once again, Brahmins were the rule. Although with some exceptions, others could be made a chief judge. Their opinion was sought on particularly different points of law, but the trial would flow freely. The decisions of the judges should be based not only on equity but on fairness, taking into account diverse customs and practices prevalent in the society at that point of time. Now, what do we understand from the principles of administration that we have just studied? Manu provides the basic framework for order, stability and governance in Hindu society. He laid down the ground rules for administration, keeping in mind welfare and good governance. He placed great importance on proper administration as part of Raj Dharma. Administration would be responsive to the needs of the people, it should be transparent, and administrators should be accountable to the people. Manu gives great importance to transparency in public opinion also. Responsibility was placed on all the different organs of the government. Manu also introduced a rational system of taxation because he knew that a rich treasury was needed for proper administration and prosperity of the state. He also emphasized on a rational wage system so that the poor and the weak are not exploited by the rich. Though some positions were reserved for the hereditary peers, but then Manu also emphasized on merit as the basis of statecraft and employment in various capacities. Thus, Manu advocated a model of statecraft based on justice, transparency, welfare, equity and accountability. It was an efficient and effective administrative model. Let us sum up, students, what we have studied in the principles of government. We have already studied how Manusmriti offers a manual for administration of polity and society. We have also studied the various principles of administration in terms of decentralized governance, a rational system of taxation. We have also studied the wage policy, system of jury. We have also studied interstate relationship, and finally, we found that all the principles of administration laid down by Manu in the Manusmriti were realistic and highly contemporary in their orientation and can be applicable in the modern world of today. Thank you.